What's up, everybody? This is John, one of the coaches here with Results Driven. We're here today with Burton from Propstream. He's going to be going over some lead generation stuff, some of the ins and outs about Propstream and ever-changing environment that we're facing right now. We've done a few trainings with Burton at this point. It's always super valuable. The entire community really, attaches to it and appreciates it and applies it really well. So joining us on here is going to be Burton. Burton, you with us here?
Hey, what's going on? How are you guys doing today?
Doing really well, man. About yourself?
I'm very well. I can't complain. I'm alive, I'm breathing, and I'm here today. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's good to have you here. So I'm going to, kind of let you control here. We're really excited to have you, lucky to have you here with us to learn all about Propstream and a little bit about how we can benefit it and apply it to our community.
Oh, perfect. Well, let me go ahead and get started. I'd like to start by sharing my screen. The first thing I like to do is pretty much to show you everybody what's like under the hood of Propstream. And so I'd like to share the data sets that we have in our platform right now. So a lot of us are very familiar that, we help with investors and agents and anybody in the real estate profession when it comes to that residential side. But a lot of people don't know we're more than just that. We have commercial, we have industrial, vacant land, government properties, transportation, agricultural. So what I'm referring to here is like the building characteristics, the land characteristics. We know you needed more than that. So we ended up getting other data sets from other providers like tax assessor data, pre-foreclosure data, third-party data like MLS, on-market, and historical data like sold data, failed listings. We even got third-party data, which is even harder to capture, like HOA data, parcel boundaries. We've been doing this for about 16 years because we started back in 2006, that we even created our own and identified our own leads, like pre-probate. We're the first to show you nationwide someone who's passed away and left the property behind. And this has become a big topic recently. Flippers, anybody that's buying and selling a house in less than 2 years. We have FEMA flood zone data, which we haven't implemented yet, but you get the point. Now, what we do with this data is also very important. And this is a question I get a lot. Burton, you have a lot of data, but what is it that you do with that data? And what we do is we address the two fundamentals that you need to address in your business. Again, I don't care if you're a lender, an investor, an agent. These are the two things that you're going to need to do in your business: lead generation and analyzing a property. Because as you're doing lead generation, as you're grabbing that list from the county, which, by the way, that's what we're doing for you, so you don't have to do that anymore. But as you're grabbing that list, you're going to be able to market to that list, right? When someone calls you back, that's the second part of your business. So generating leads is one thing, marketing to those leads, but then analyzing them when they call you back is another thing. You need to know everything about that property, the finances of the property, the situation the property is going through, and then the ability to run comps to get your after repair value. So you know what 70% is, what 80% is. And this is what we do, right? Now, I like to start off by showing you like how it is to analyze a property in Propstream. And to do that, I'm going to get to Propstream. So let's start by going over to Propstream and showing you just that one part of your business, which is analyzing an individual property. So when you log into Propstream for the first time, software updates will tell you about new data sets, our webinars that we do daily, Propstream add-ons like our mobile app at no additional cost, team members, etc., all the other stuff that we have within Propstream. When you hit close, just understand that the nation is your playground. So the first thing that we had to do with all of that data is consolidate it. Because in the past, investors either were going into every conversation blindly, they didn't know anything about the properties, the finances, or comps, so they had to extract that information from the homeowner, or they had to go to 7 different websites. Today, any property owner in the United States can call me and I can either zoom in. Let's say the property is in Hutchinson, Kansas. I can zoom in. We're using Google Maps, by the way, but those parcel boundaries that we bought, we laid them over the map. So immediately you'll see parcel boundaries, and that will give you the ability to click on any parcel and immediately get the brief details of that property. So we have over 155 million property records in Propstream, and you're going to be able to search any one of them, either by clicking on their parcel, or the more common way to do it, rather than clicking their parcel, is to search their address. As a matter of fact, if you search their address, you'll get more data. By searching their address, we'll put that little box off to the right-hand side. That way we can show you on the map the neighbors, the MLS, the pre-foreclosures, etc. We'll even take that zip code, show you how many buyers, how many MLS properties, how many auction properties, and even show you the statistics, like how long a 1-bedroom property will last on the market and what that 1 bedroom would potentially rent for. And this is on a nationwide scale, right? So if that homeowner you're marketing to says, no, I'm actually talking about my mom's house who wants to sell and she happens to live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, I can do the same thing. Zoom in and instantly have the details of any property. Again, I can either click on the parcel or take that address and search it. We do recommend that you search the address because, again, we'll give you more local information. I think the most important part here, especially if you're a fix and flipper trying to raise private money or a wholesaler, is just knowing if there's enough buyers to support you on this lead. Now, this is the first thing that happens in that 1 minute, 2 minute conversation, right? You're doing your introduction, you're asking for that address, you're trying to understand the local environment. But when that conversation carries on, you're actually going to want to go into our details right over here. In our details page, this is where we put everything together. So you don't have to go to 7 different websites. So at the top, you're going to see the dashboard. And this is extracting information from these several tabs down here. But let me kind of break it down really quick. The first thing you'll see is a satellite image. And feel free to click on that to expand it. Since we're using Google Maps, feel free to drop yourself down to street level. Complement the house paint, complement the nice car out front. That might build extra rapport that others never even thought about. Talk about the neighbor and their balcony that looks like it's falling apart, right? Maybe the noise of them doing the remodeling is what's causing them to want to sell. Right? So Google Maps is great for you, but it also could be great with building a relationship with that homeowner. So take full advantage of that. Below that, you'll see property characteristics. And you got to imagine, before technology, before internet, no one knew this information. You had to ask that from the homeowner. And that might have pissed them off. They might have said, I thought you're the investor, and then hung up on you. Today, knowing this property is over 122 years old, I can bring that up in the conversation right away, right? Hey, Storm Camp. Hey, Westman. I see the property is about 120 years old. How many times have you guys done the roof? When's the last time you've done the roof? Right? So instead of asking about the year built, I know it, I can ask a different question. This question is regarding the construction of the property and the quality of it, which eventually will dictate what the numbers are going to be later on. To the right of the characteristics is a summary of that property, like the type, whether you have to worry about an HOA, if it's individually owned or corporate owned, if the owner actually owner occupied, if they're actually answering their mail, occupied or vacant, how many years they've lived there. All of this information, again, is coming from down here. So immediately I know there's 2 owners. So if Westman were to call me, I like to speak to the other owner as well. Bring them both on the line, rather than making a deal with one owner and then all of a sudden the next morning they're telling you that the other person didn't agree with the numbers. I know immediately there's 2 people in the title. Property characteristics, building size, land and location information. And don't overlook this stuff. I've had investors talk about the school district. Hey, how's Minneapolis Public School District? Oh, we've lived here for nearly 25 years or more. We used to go to that school district. Our kids now go to that school district. And a rapport is being built just by asking about that school district. Legal description, tax information, last arm sale information. This is what we're providing. Now, the next thing most people wanted after property details is what we call situational data. Not every property is going to have that. So let me show you a few examples. If a property is on the MLS and you click on that property and go into the details of that property will have an MLS tab next to property details. So as you can see here, property details, and then the MLS details, because this property has been identified, in this case, to be an active listing. You'll see the agent's information, the history, etc. If you click on a property or search a property in pre-foreclosure, you're right, you're going to see a pre-foreclosure detail tab and any other tab associated with it. So if a property is in pre-foreclosure and also decides to list their property, you'll see those 2 tabs separately. This is what I mean by going to 7 different websites. You had to go to the county for one of this information, go to another county website for that information, and then you had to be a realtor to get this information. And we're not even talking about the taxes or the mortgage information yet. Okay, this is what we call situational data. Not every property is going to have it, but when they do, definitely want to pay attention to that. So you have property information, so you know who you're talking to and everything about the property in the building. You have the situational data, so you know what they're going through. And sometimes you can understand why they're doing certain things. Like the recording date of this auction was on May 3rd, and the unpaid balance is $78,000. You're either going to have to pay for that or list your property for more than that. And once the property sells, you can take care of it. See, data's telling me a story. I didn't even have to speak to the homeowner. You got into pre-foreclosure because you didn't make your payments, and now you're trying to sell your house to get rid of that. What happens if the house doesn't sell? This is where you could potentially come in, right? Now, you're not going to just call the homeowner blindly and say, I like to make an offer. And if it doesn't sell for 169, why are you going to buy it for 169, right? This is where our comparables comes into play. You're going to have access to this on a nationwide level. So this is what we call situational data. Again, you click on a lien, that property will have the lien information within it. So details, situational data, which you're going to see up here as well, estimated values, how many comps you have, the mortgage and the lien amounts, the last sell date, the potential equity that you have to work with. So property details, situational data, then the ability to run comps. And you can use our public records and our recently acquired MLS data. We just got it back. So nationwide, non-disclosure or disclosure, we got you covered. So the benefit here, for those that are non-disclosure, stick with the MLS. For those that are in disclosure state, we have off-market records for you. We have on-market records for you. You can use them both if you'd like, okay? And don't forget, you can print out reports too. After you filter your comps using our filters, feel free to check the comps off that you like, generate a comps report, because you're going to probably need to show the homeowner your homework, right? So by generating a comps report, you can educate that homeowner or your buyers. And this is our comps report here. First page is the homeowner's house and information on that property. The second page, based on your comps, will show you the low, high, and average values. Again, that's going to be dictated based on the filtered comps that you select. The map showing the subject property and where that comp is at are the comps. The sources that you use, MLS, public records, maybe both, maybe one or the other. And even photos of the properties, because some of these homeowners are going to be very stubborn. They're going to want full price, even though the roof is caving in. To be able to show them what these houses look like, both on the outside and on the inside, helps you educate. I always say, don't argue about the price. Even if they're going to ask for $1 million, agree. So yeah, you know, your house is worth $1 million, but realistically, this is what we need to do to get it there. And in its current condition, this is what it's going to sell for. And let me show you other houses that are selling for $100,000, $200,000, etc. So if I know these houses are selling for an average $200,000 and the property's falling apart and they want 169, etc., now I know where my 70% mark is, my 50% mark is, etc., etc. This is our property details page. And it also wraps it up by giving you tax information on that property, mortgage information, and the documents and reports. So this is the hard part. This is what we spent most of our business efforts on, was getting all that data that's scattered from many different providers and then consolidating it so that when you're speaking to 10, 15 homeowners, you're just searching address, then going to the next one, then the next one, and then the next one, because we don't limit you on your location. Now let's talk about the hot topic, right? Analyzing property is one thing, but what if I don't have a property? How do I do that? Well, let's use Minneapolis as an example today. So in Propstream, in order to generate leads, you're going to need to pull up a market. And you can search by county, a city, a zip code, or use our draw search feature. And along the way, feel free to use our heat map at the top right. We have an estimated value heat map, MLS stats heat map, a price growth, and a rent value heat map. Now, nothing's going to happen when you click on any of these categories because there's actually subcategories you need to choose. So for like our price growth, what time frame would you like to see? Only when you choose a subcategory, then we can show you the results. So here we can see the growth, or I could see rental values. And once I find the right area, either by growth or by rental value, then I can use that draw search feature. And through several left clicks, I can create my own shaded area and hit enter and only populate the leads that fit my growth criteria or my rental criteria. So these are the types of searches that you can perform. Take full advantage of our heat map along the way. This will guide you to great markets, hot markets, growth in a market, or the right rental values if you're a buy and hold investor. All right, so now that we know the tools to search, let's just perform a search. So I'm going to search Minneapolis as an example today. And the first thing that's going to happen when you search the market is we're going to give you every record that we have on on a list. So what it's saying here is, Burton, there's 368,000 records. If I wanted to, I could click on the first address and manually try to find motivation or what the reason is that they would want to sell. I don't recommend that. If you're going to take that route, feel free to do it. It's 50 results per page. You're going to be on page 1 of 7,376 pages in this example. I don't recommend that. So what we do to help you out is we take these records and categorize them into our first 8 categories. We'll show you how many of those records are on the MLS. And if you click on these records, we're just going to isolate that. Now, there's something that not too many people know about, but there's 3 ways to view your results. This is called pick view, where we show you a picture of the property. There's also list view, where we get rid of the picture and just show you a description of the property. And then there's spreadsheet view. This is a feature not too many people use. I encourage them to use it more. By clicking on this arrow, you get this spreadsheet view. It looks like an Excel sheet, and this is the reason why I like it. I can go to Minneapolis, Minnesota, click on the cash buyers, use that spreadsheet view, and break it up by zip code and follow the money. Whichever zip code has the most cash buyers, that's probably where I want to put all my efforts into lead generation. I can also use it in a way to identify maybe distress in a market. I click on all the pre-foreclosures and then break them up by zip code. This will help me identify which zip code tends to have more challenges financially, perhaps. Wouldn't we want to put our efforts there instead of all the other zip codes where there's only 1, maybe 2 pre-foreclosures a year? So use the spreadsheet view to your advantage. But not only do we categorize the categories for you, here's what I really want you to get used to. Pull up your market and just go straight into our search filter. Build that behavior. Pull up your market, straight into our search filter. To the left are 150 filters that you can use to create your own lead. In the middle are 18 quick list choices. I want you to think of this as like you're going to the county virtually. You're going to ask the clerk for a list. That's what this is. You're going to start with the list, and then from there, you're going to be able to use our additional filters to narrow down to a specific lead or a specific owner that you want, or a specific equity amount that you want. And to the right is just a summary. Now, because we have 18 lists and over 150 filters, it could get very complex. So let me provide some guides for you. There are 2 types of searches that you can perform in Propstream. The 2 searches that I call them, one is called the traditional search. And this is what every agent, investor, everybody in the real estate space has been doing for maybe over a century now, right? And here's how it works. Once you pull up a market, step 1, pick a list. Step 2, make sure it's off market. Otherwise, you're going to be paying over asking price right now. That's the common trend. And we're not trying to do that. We're trying to get big discounts right now on properties, right? So make sure it's off market. 3, your exit strategy is going to dictate your equity minimum or maximum. So if you're doing short sales, you probably don't need number 3. But if you're doing wholesaling or fixing and flipping, you're definitely going to need equity. So make sure you apply that minimum. And the 4th rule in the traditional search is what type of property and owner characteristics do you want? Because some of us are going to want LLCs, or some of us are going to go after individuals. Some of us are going to want mobile homes, single family properties. This is the traditional search. And the way that works in Propstream is you'll go into Propstream, you'll pull up your market, right? So we're in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're in the search filter, and we're going to start with the lists. I'm going to go ahead and choose maybe the tax delinquencies. So you didn't make your tax payment on time. Uh-oh. But I don't just need tax delinquencies. There's a specific one I want, right? And we follow the rules. So first we pick a list, then we go to MLS status and we make sure where it says on market, we hit no. We just added a really cool feature, a high demand feature. Under MLS status, never listed. So I can say, hey, you know what? I want a person who didn't make their tax payment on time. They're not on market. As a matter of fact, they've never listed their property. I'll be the first person to call them and talk to them about selling their property is the idea here. Okay. So pick a list, make sure it's off market. The cherry on top, you could say never listed. The 3rd rule is your equity amount. Again, your exit strategy will dictate this, but that can be found in the value and equity section. Here, you're going to want to look for the equity dollar amount or the percentage amount. Percentage is the more popular one, but here, put your minimum. So you can do 30% minimum, 40%. If you're someone who does creative stuff, feel free to do negative numbers. I want -10 to -5%, perhaps. So you can do negative equity here if you'd like. Most strategies do require equity. So let's just take that as an example. Let's do 40% for today's example. So we have a list, off market, never listed, cherry on top, equity. The 4th and final rule or guideline when you're doing the traditional search is what property characteristics do you want? So for me today, we'll do residential and single family. And since I'm not trying to flip a mansion, maybe 2 to 5 bedrooms and maybe something built before 2005. So now that my property characteristics are done, the last part to part 4 is what's the owner characteristics? Because you're about to market to a bunch of owners. Who do you want calling you back? So in ownership info, the person I want calling me back, the owner type, would most likely be an individual. Now, I don't want an individual who just bought a house and forgot to make their tax payments. So I need an individual who's lived in their house for a minimum 7 years. Because you should have known by now, after living there for 7 years, that you got to make this tax payment. So after 7 years of ownership, you're an individual, you didn't make your tax payment, you're not on market, you have the right amount of equity and the property type I want. Well, now I'm done. There is another thing that you can do here. It's called list stacking. You can continue with more filters. Like, you can say how many of these properties are vacant. So what we're doing here is we're taking the vacant list and the tax delinquency list and smashing them together. This is what we call list stacking. It's great to find additional motivation, but I do cautious you that the more you do it, the smaller your list will get. And we all know this is a numbers game. So if I say tax delinquency, vacant, and perhaps a tax lien, well, we go from hundreds of properties to just one property that happens to be in all 3 categories. So you can definitely list stack in Propstream. There's also the ability of suppressing leads too. Let's say I don't want any leads or liens or pre-foreclosures. And in these categories, you can exclude records. You can say tax delinquencies, but I'm not an expert in pre-foreclosures, so get rid of that from my list. Tax delinquencies, but I'm not an expert in liens or bankruptcies or divorces, so suppress those from my list. So just as you can stack, you can also suppress. So once you follow the 4 guidelines, maybe you add some more filters, maybe you suppress some filters, go ahead and hit close, and your results are now on the right-hand side. What started with 1,200 leads, or thousands, 360,000 leads, are now down to 1,200 highly motivated homeowners, right? We're not just randomly knocking on doors. We're knocking on the specific properties we want, the right amount of equity, the right amount of motivation. They've never been listed, et cetera, et cetera. Now I can check off those properties, which is the next step, and add them to a list. And you can add them to a list you already have, or you can create a new one. And we can call this the Minneapolis tax list, perhaps. This is the traditional search. And you can do what you're already familiar with in Propstream, plus list stacking and list suppression. But there is one last search I want to show you, and this is called building situations. You see, a lot of people forget we're a data provider. We're not a list provider. And Propstream for the last 16 years has provided data, property information, property details, mortgage data. I want you to resonate with that because I'm a firm believer that everybody watching this is a problem solver. And in Propstream, we give you the ability to build problems, build situations that you can solve. Here, let me give you an example. And let me actually give you my guideline. This search I call building situations. And these are the 4 steps. 1, off market. 2, equity. 3, property and owner characteristics. Yes, they look very familiar because I stole them from the traditional search. If it isn't broken, why fix it? Now, what I mean here is that when you're pulling up a market, don't pick a list yet. Don't do anything else. Do these 3 things first. So here's the example I'm going to give you. When I'm in Minnesota, which I'm sure is a very competitive market for agents, for investors, here's how I would approach it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the search filter. And before I build a list or choose a list, I'm going to do everything else first. So step 1, off market, maybe something that's never been listed. Step 2, I need my equity amount, right? Because no matter what the list is, no matter what the situation is, it needs to be off market and it needs to have maybe 40% in equity or more. The third rule, property and owner characteristics, right? Because no matter what the list is, it has to be off market. It has to have equity. It needs to have residential, single family, built 3 to 5 bedrooms, maybe built before a certain year. Same with the ownership. No matter what the situation is, no matter what the list is, the people I like to talk to are individuals that have lived in their house for 10 years or more. So this is what I call building situations. And this is the first 3 rules of that. Go in your market, and the first thing you should do is make sure everything's off market, everything has the right amount of equity you need, and the property and owner type that you want. The 4th and final rule, and this is going to challenge you a little bit. I'm going to need you to step back. mentally and start thinking of certain things that are happening right now, right? But I need you to start building situations. Start listening to the news. Start listening to current events. Just a few days ago, if you're watching this, the feds increased the interest rates. And that's going to affect some homeowners, not every homeowner, right? If I have a mortgage right now and it's a fixed rate, that's not going to impact me at all. But if I'm a mortgage owner or homeowner and I have a certain type of mortgage, like an adjustable rate mortgage, that's going to be important to me. And guess what? That's data that we provide. So you can go in Propstream, and rather than choosing a list, I could say, you know what, Propstream, I want off market, someone who's owned a property for 10 years. So they got, 10 years of payments into that property. Maybe they got used to that minimum amount for the last 10 years. But now the feds raised that rate. And so the type of person I want is a person with a mortgage type, an interest rate type, that's an adjustable rate mortgage. So rather than picking a list, which in my opinion, I mean, if you're on a list, something had to happen prior to you getting on that list, right? And this is an example of that. Rather than going after a list, I'm going after everybody that has an adjustable rate mortgage, because if they cannot adjust to that increased rate, then that extra payment that they can't make anymore is going to cause a pre-foreclosure, cause them to miss their tax payment and become a tax delinquent property, maybe cause an argument and then they're filing for divorce. Maybe they'll file for bankruptcy as well. So with Propstream, you have to remember, yes, we do have lists to help you because we understand the traditional sense. We're a data provider. And if you understand that, you can do this. You can build situations that potentially aren't on a list yet. Here's a few more examples. Stealing this from some of our users. I had a realtor, even an investor can do this, who used property characteristics as an example for motivation. Went after people that have lived in their house for 10 years or more that were owner occupied. So they're actually living in that house. But the motivation was they had one bathroom only. And it dawned upon me, these are the homeowners that walk into a realtor's office and say, we need to upgrade our property. They're not on a pre-foreclosure list because they pay their bills. They're not on a lien list because they pay their HOA, they pay their taxes, etc. But the situation is they're just tired of sharing one bathroom because that 2-year-old they bought it when they bought the property is now 12, right? So they're taking an hour in the bathroom now. And that mother, father maybe wants a second bathroom. So thinking of things like this could be very important. And the last thing I'm going to leave you off with is consider blending the two together. I've seen very clever searches like a senior owner who property characteristics is in a 2-story building, right? Consider that. Maybe they want to consolidate to a single-story property now. I saw someone do this one. This was sensitive, but also very interesting of a search. A deceased owner, someone who's passed away with a property attached to their name. But here's the thing, that person had multiple properties attached to their name, like 5 or more attached to their name. And so they found an address with an individual who had multiple properties attached to the name, essentially got more than one lead out of it. This is what we excel in, not just the property details, which we know you're going to need once they start calling you. So we got you covered on that part of the business. But the other part is the lead generation part. And you have to remember, we're not just here to provide you a list, which you can do. That's the traditional search. Pick a list and build upon that list. But remember, you can build situations. So next time you're at a family party and your relatives are complaining about the roof leaking, ask them for their zip code, ask them for the year built, and search for every property in that same year because they might have used the same contractor, right? So this is our presentation today. Again, still a lot more. We didn't talk about skip tracing. We didn't talk about the campaign section, our postcards and emails and websites we give you. But the goal today was to really just focus on the core, how to use Propstream to analyze a property, essentially what you're going to see when you search an address. But more importantly, because the hot topic right now is getting those leads, how to utilize this in the traditional sense or building situations. So my name is Burton. Thank you guys so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I couldn't have it any other way today. So I appreciate you guys. Oh, I think my sound went
sorry
out.
about that. Thank you so much for all the great info. You know, we use this on a day in, day out basis, and every time we hop on here, we learn something new from you. So really appreciate it. I know a lot of our small group students up here at Results Driven just absolutely love it. What a fantastic resource we have at our disposal, right? So what I'd really like to do is kind of open it up to the community right now, see if anyone has any questions for Burton. Just go ahead and throw it in the chat if so. Yeah, and Burton, I really like that use of the realtor in the property characteristics to kind of go in and search. That's a new one for me. I never considered, growing up in a house where there was 1 bathroom and 8 kids. That should have stuck out to me a little bit earlier, but now I'm realizing that could be, a very influential piece there. So it's always good to just have those things, another tool in the belt there. So
Thank you. Yeah. And again, that's something I learned from somebody. It was something that I saw them do. And again, they had the experience of people coming into their office. They were scratching their head. How can I get to you before you get to me or my competitor's office? And, one of the bring ups was, yeah, we need to upgrade. We need to upgrade. And once I started showing building situations, I think it clicked for that realtor. And so I'm happy to share that. I hope you guys run with it because, again, there's a lot of people out there that are motivated sellers. They're just not on a list, for lack of a better word, yet, right? So
right.
there are ways that you can identify motivation prior to them being on the list.
Yeah, that's so important too. And wanted to ask you too, you have any books that you would recommend to the community here to kind of help guide them through?
There are lots of real estate books. The one that helped me, I would say, it's a Bigger Pockets book. This one helped me understand multiple different strategies. The book on investing with real estate with no or low money. Obviously, being in the data space, we deal with a lot of different professionals, from realtors to lenders to those that do creative seller financing to fix and flippers and wholesalers. This book actually exposed me to multiple different strategies out there, and that helped me personally because once I understood the strategies that you guys were implementing, it helped me understand the different angles that you can take with our data. Like for example, if you're a lender, this was really big after the pandemic. I had a buddy who looked for everybody who bought a property from 2018 to 2019 with a mortgage. Right now, think about that. Right, pandemic, millions of people are losing their job. You just bought a house with a mortgage. My buddy, who's a lender, was reaching out to see if anybody needed to refinance to save a few bucks for the uncertain future. So these are things that you can do. And again, building situation, I think, has become the new thing because as you can see, lots of investors and agents are coming into the industry, which is a great thing. You have more problem solvers, but the challenge is, the traditional search is very limited because there's only X amount of people on a list. And if you don't understand the method of building situations, you might fall a little behind, especially because of how technology is changing things moving forward.
Yeah, that's a perfect point. I think that, that piece on following the situation, right? Keeping up on current events and utilizing a thing like Propstream to make sure that we're best maximizing our efforts there is going to be just absolutely vital going forward. So it doesn't look right away like we have any questions in the chat. Be silent today. So, Bert, we absolutely appreciate you being here, man. Always golden nuggets dropped all over the place here for us to pick up and utilize. So we appreciate you, community rock stars. You guys go keep killing it. And we'll see you on here next time. Thanks so much.